that is going to be visible through other objects. So it's just a description after all. So X-ray makes the object you chose to be X-ray visible through other objects. For when we're doing posing, that's going to make it an awful lot easier. Now we're going to go to this mode. We've got the mesh selected, that is, we've got the caterpillar selected, and we go to weight painting mode. Weight painting. And what we're going to do is we're going to be able to see the armature, the individual bones. We can still right click on them to select them while we've got the mesh selected. And we've got some sections in here where it's got a paint section, and you have the weight and you have the opacity. Well, we're only going to put it onto maximum for what we're doing, so we put the opacity up to full. Also click on this spray, which basically when you're painting it keeps spraying as if you had a spray can. And then we're going to start painting. You notice it's blue, that means there is absolutely no effect from that bone. And then when it goes red red colour, there's going to be maximum effect from that bone. Now you can balance these, the weight. When it talks about weight, it means influence, so you could think of it as influence painting. So what we're painting on here is not going to be a colour that's going to render. It's not going to change the colour, obviously, of our final rendered animation or our final rendered caterpillar, but we're painting on the influence from that bone. It's a visual way of doing it. Now you'll notice there's as I paint this, it's painted onto the back of some of the caterpillar there. So what you do is you can unpaint by turning the opacity, or not the opacity, rather the weight, change the weight down to 0, put the opacity up full, change the weight down to 0, and now when we paint, we're painting on no influence, so that the head bone will have no influence over those areas. Because obviously, although we can visually see that this is a caterpillar and what things should affect what things, the computer doesn't know that. We have to tell it which parts of the armature should deform which parts of the mesh. Once you start getting the hang of this, it's really quite straightforward and it's a very effective way of assigning what are called vertex groups. So now we turn it back up and carry on painting our mesh. And the great thing about this is you can also test it while you're in weight paint mode. You can have the bone selected, and you can do G to grab and R to rotate and actually see how well it works. So if I do that now, obviously it's not going to be anywhere near complete, but you can see that the head is following the head bone, and of course all the others still needs a lot of work. Now during this tutorial I'm going to do it quite quickly, but you could spend quite a bit of time on it, and you could also do it so that you use the weight painting in the way it was designed as well, to actually adjust how much influence each bone has. So you could have one bone, you can get a more subtle, I'm not explaining this very well, you can get a more subtle deformation. So two adjoining bones would have 50% of the influence, so you'd get a smoother deform of the mesh. But because of the way the caterpillar is, in the way we designed it, we want it really just to pivot more or less completely where the joins of the different segments are of the caterpillar. Remember, we talked about how we were designing this caterpillar when we built it. So now getting in here closely, now you can, on the paint panel, you can change the size of the brush, but what I always tend to do is just use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, because the brush size stays the same, so then when you zoom in and out, relatively it's larger or smaller. But sometimes I have adjusted the size, but don't really need to at the moment. Now here's interesting, where we've got the head bent back, you can notice that there's a bad deformation there. There's a bit there that looks still blue, so just touch that with the paint, right click to select the head bone, and look how it jumps back into position. So you can easily see and easily modify how your mesh is being influenced by the various bones of the armature. So I'll select this lower neck bone now and start painting the areas that will influence. And you can actually, as you paint it, you can see, because we've actually moved the bones. Sometimes that's the best way to do it, is if you want to see that you're getting the right bits, is to move the bone, grab or rotate the bone, and then you can see as you paint the influence on, it jumps into the right position. so you can tell you that you're doing it right. You saw it happen there. It's actually a bit slower at the moment because I'm capturing this video. It's actually a bit slower than it is when you're not. And I'm not really going in here very carefully at the moment, but I will actually sharpen it up a little bit and sort it out so that the model on the, you'll see the animation later, and the model on, or you've already seen the animation no doubt, and the model on the CD-ROM will be hopefully deforming a little bit better. Now that's looking better. I'll be able to test that in a moment. So if I grab this bone, obviously the ones behind them, but there's a bit at the front there, one of the feet. You can see that that's not quite right. Needs a little touching up. So let's just drag it down a bit, drag it up again. You can see there's some area of the mesh that's been left behind that should be influenced. So just paint it, and it jumps back into position where it should be. There's also some there on the neck that needs doing. Once you get the hang of this, it takes away a lot of the mystery once you understand what's going on. Assigning vertex groups used to be possible, but a lot more difficult than it is using this weight painting. Works very well indeed, in my opinion. Basically just carry on going through this, sorting out all the bits and pieces and the various problems. Now I've noticed also that I had soft enabled, so you can actually enable disenable, take off the soft button there, and that actually stops it being quite so soft in its painting. And I'll just carry on painting all these as we go along quite quickly. The best way to learn about doing this is just to do it, just literally do it. You can, obviously I'm doing it here all in one viewport, but you can do it in a couple of viewports to make it a little bit easier. And you should find, depending also upon the speed of your graphic card, that it'll work a lot quicker than I'm doing it here, because I'm, as I say, capturing this video at the same time as doing the weight painting. Let's get into the stage now where I've nearly covered all of the